I've dusted off the record players today because I wanted to do this video and talk about what it was really like for most DJs, in my world anyway, back in the old days when we were all using something that kind of looked like this. Record players with records and a mixing board. And if you think I'm going to be doing all kinds of trick stuff today on the turntables and that's why you've tuned in, you might be a little disappointed because I'm going to tell you how it really was in my world. By the way, this video is brought to you by Hollywood DJ, located on 11th Street in Los Angeles, California. They are a retailer of most everything DJ. If you're looking for something, reach out to Hollywood. Take a look at the link in the description of this video, click on it, or alternately, give them a call. Alan there's a good friend of mine. Hell, tell him I sent you. Thank you, Hollywood DJ, for being one of our channel sponsors. I think when most people think about DJing in the old days, they're thinking about maybe Frankie Knuckles, Cameron Paul, Grandmaster Flash, DMC, Jazzy Jeff, something like that. Or maybe even Qbert with a lot of scratching and things. You see a lot of people, when they'll say, "What do you do?" And you say, "I'm a DJ." And they go, "Oh, you mean like this?" And you're like, "Yeah." Look, there's a reason they do this, I think. I think. And I'll get into that later on in this video. But the first thing that I will tell you is that what you're seeing here is not what I saw most of the time. I saw something that kind of resembled this if I was playing at a really good club. I personally couldn't afford Technics 1200s. And most of the places that I worked actually had something more like a belt-driven off-brand turntable. Sometimes they were even mismatched. There's a picture from the first booth I ever played in. And this picture's from '89, but I played in this booth for the first time in '84. It's a skating rink I worked at, and those are the turntables I used. And the pitch didn't work on one of them, and they didn't keep good time, and they didn't have good, speed up time. They were a chore to work with. But we used records, and the reason we used records is because that's where most music was available. You could get back catalog stuff there, you could get current stuff there. CDs were very new and very expensive, and there wasn't a lot of titles available. It wasn't feasible. I'll also tell you this. I liked to buy the records that I thought were cool. And I'd take them to work and I'd use them. But most places that I worked, be it a club or a skating rink or even a mobile service, they had everything there for you already, including the records. There was a cabinet of records. It was their library. It's kind of what their vibe was, and you played out of that library. Sure, you bring some of your own things to supplement, but we didn't have every title in the world. Not like today. People have hard drives just full of music, getting them from services like Promo Only and Top Hits or wherever you happen to get them. Download them from Amazon, whatever. It wasn't like that back in the old days. You had to physically go to the store and buy a song. We didn't make a lot of money as DJs. And like I said, my library was pretty much taken care of for me, most places I went, but I don't know how the DJs who were doing really cool stuff, I don't know how they afforded the music they had, because I knew what I made. I definitely couldn't afford to buy all that cool music or those cool turntables that they had. And of course, once I got into the club, you start mixing a little more because you've got turntables that are a little more accurate, and oh my god, that seems so easy because I've been working with junk before. When I first started working at a club with Technics, it was a whole new world. I didn't have to worry about the things that I had to worry about with the junky record players that I was working with back in the day. So I'm saying records a lot. Notice I'm not saying vinyl, because in my world we didn't say vinyl. That seems to be a very European thing. But yeah, this was a record. And although it's made of vinyl, historically it was made of wax, and some people refer to it as wax. But yeah, this was a record, not vinyl or vinyls or whatever you might say. So that's why you don't hear me say that very often. So a word about controllers and computers and files and all that stuff. It's absolutely amazing. There's stuff that you can do on controllers or on your computer that would be like Fantasyland with this stuff. The reason people like Grandmaster Flash and Cameron Paul and Frankie Knuckles and Larry Levan and even people like, Qbert or Jazzy Jeff or whatever were so amazing is that they could take record players and create some of the stuff that we can easily create on a controller. Super easy. You press a button and you got a loop. You got an intro, no problem. You got your sync button, which I know people think is evil, but I think the sync's okay. Personally, I don't have a problem with it. But the reason a lot of old school DJs don't like it was because they had to match beats with a pitch fader, or just by slowing a record down with your finger or something. They think it's cheating, and it kind of is. But you know what? If it's about the art in the mix, who cares? But it was a lot simpler back in the old days with most DJs. We were only trying to not have dead air between tracks. Most of us. The wedding guys, the bar guys. Yeah, like I said, the crazy turntablists existed. Chicago had a whole subculture of great house DJs. People in New York were doing some amazing things with hip hop. But most of us were just trying not to have dead air between tracks. Most DJs, whether you were doing big clubs or weddings or whatever, you had to cue your record. And you did this on your headphones. The audience didn't hear it. And what you would do is, you start your record, you put your needle on your record like this, and wait for the first beat, if that's where you wanted to bring the song in. That beat? You see the motion I'm doing? I think that's where that wiki hand motion comes from people. So this record's ready to go. It's queued up. And now all I have to do is hold this in place, start the turntable, and wait for my opportunity to move the crossfader over and release this record. I got a slip mat on here, turntable spinning underneath it, and go. And there we go. Now, this wasn't always that easy. Some turntables that I worked with didn't have a start-stop button. A lot of them didn't. I know that sounds weird, but they didn't. And some of them were belt-driven and took like a revolution and a half to get up to speed. So you have to find your beat and then go back like a turn and a half or 2 turns, because you needed this platter to get up to speed in time for the record to start. The slip mats help, but not always. So sometimes it sounded more like this. And then as soon as the beat hit, you can move the crossfader over all the way. Not very romantic, but that's how it was for a lot of us. So back in the old days, it looked something like this. Let's say we had a track playing on this deck. That track. On our headphones. So nobody could hear it. We had to go over here and start trying to cue this track up. Put the needle on the record. Okay, right now I can hear this record slow. This is 45, not 33. So let's speed it up. Go back to beginning. By the way, I used to use 2 hands, but I don't have 2 hands anymore. Okay, that's ready to go. Put our fader in the middle. And all we wanted to do was not have dead air. Wasn't even on beat. Sometimes it was like that. Sometimes we used this track to fade out or end to do this. But let's say you wanted to try to beat mix if you were trying to be cool. On your headphones, you gotta try to match the BPM. So about there. Now if we want to try to ride it, so have to try to maybe slow it down or speed up a little bit. But here's the thing, we weren't riding it like this back in the old days. This stuff was not sequenced. We were only trying to do like a 4 to 8 bar transition. But let's say we want to go on the beginning of the track. We got the pitch control we wanted. Now we got to cue the record back up. We're doing this all on headphones, remember? not very romantic, but that's about as good as it got sometimes for a guy like me. Again, there were some DJs who were doing some amazing stuff. I wasn't that DJing. There weren't many people that I knew who were that DJ. They didn't have the equipment. They didn't have the music. And maybe they just weren't all that coordinated and talented. It took somebody really special to do something like Jazzy Jeff or Grandmaster Flash or any of the big club guys, like I mentioned before, Cameron Paul, Frankie Knuckles, Larry Levon, Bad Boy Bill. Those guys did some amazing stuff. Most of us were just doing simple stuff like this. Imagine in the 80s, you want to be a DJ, and you get a job at someplace like the local skating rink, or a mobile op hires you and brings you on to train you. They've got all the equipment for you. For you to get proficient with something like mixing, like real mixing, you're going to have to make an investment. We're talking about 1980s money here. You've got to buy some good turntables if you can afford them. You've got to buy good needles if you can afford them. If you break a needle, you have to replace it. You have to go to a store to do that. Every song you want to play, you have to go out and physically buy it. Every single song. Sometimes you're buying 2 copies of it so you can mix the track up. And you've got to put hours and hours and hours of practice into doing something like a simple loop that you can do on a controller or a software program just by pushing a button on beat. That's all you have to do. In the old days, it wasn't that simple. So if you could blend 2 tracks together on beat, that meant something. If you could put 2 tracks together without dead air, that was valuable too. It's just a completely different animal. And like I said before, the only people who were doing amazing things with records and turntables, you're making huge money at clubs or doing performances or whatever the case might be. Most of us weren't doing that, didn't have the resources, and quite frankly, most people just didn't have the skill. It's like anything else. Guitar players, some guitar players are better than others. And just like guitar playing, anybody can become a great guitar player. But not everybody can write great songs. With a DJ, you can figure out how to mix this stuff. I've shown you that today one-handed. I can do it. A lot of you are doing it too with your controllers and your software programs. You're getting this stuff and you're figuring it out. There's tons of resources out there for you to learn, and you emulate a lot of different DJs, and you eventually come up with your own style of mixing or scratching or whatever you enjoy. But anybody can put the time in to learn how to do that. So you better learn how to program, pick the right songs, and come up with some interesting transitions to come in and out of them. Just a quick word at the end of this video. I hope you like this video. If you like it and it didn't get flagged and taken down, great. If you could hit the like button, I'd appreciate it. There's a lot of people upstairs getting noisy. But anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate you so much. Want more stuff like this? Let me know in the comment section. Practice and enjoy.